the history of the first man that made Devon House in Jamaica. If you're visiting Jamaica or just planning to visit, then there is one spot that you might have seen in a few videos that you've come across. It has this beautiful wooden structure with a red roof and white walls. And there is a big sign that says Devon House. And if you go up close to it, there is a little plaque that says 1881. But who was Devon and why did he build such an impressive house? Well, today we re-gone. Take a look at the story of Devon House and its connection to the very first lottery winner in Jamaica. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm on a journey to document every country's history, culture, and people through their food. So if you love food and travel, then make sure to subscribe for new episodes every week. So while it's now known as Devon House, the original name of this mansion was Fairfield. It was built by a freed slave named George Stiebel. Now, Stiebel wasn't born into slavery. In fact, his parents were born in England and they moved to Jamaica when they realized that they did unwant to participate in the slave trade anymore. So they bought a sugar plantation in 1790, but they also purchased several slaves to work for them. And sadly, this is how George met his mother. His father was a strict man and grew up hating the injustice of slavery. And when he was old enough, he began to plan his escape. When he was 26, he successfully escaped and made his way to Kingston, where he worked odd jobs and saved his money until he could buy his freedom. He then changed his name from Gustavus to George and started working as a carpenter. His hard work paid off and soon he had enough money to buy his own land and start his own business. He was able to use his carpentry skills and build houses and furniture, which earned him a lot of money. And after a few years, he was able to purchase the neighboring property and tear it down to build his dream house. This was quite the impressive feat because back in 1830, when he began construction, Jamaica was still a colony of the British Empire. And there were strict building codes that only the wealthy elite were able to follow. However, he was determined to build his dream house. And so he hired the best architects and builders to help him. The plans that he had drawn up were inspired by French architecture, which was very popular at the time. The result was a grand two-story house with 40 rooms. It was constructed out of wood and designed to be airy and light with large windows and high ceilings. And because he loved his carpentry, he decorated the interior with intricate woodwork throughout. Sadly, George passed away before he could see the house completed. But when it was finished, his son Constantine inherited the estate and decided to add even more to it. He planted an orchard full of exotic fruits and vegetables and surrounded the house with manicured gardens. Constantine was an ambitious man. While he inherited the wealth from his father, he wanted to make a name for himself. So he went to work as a clerk in the courthouse. After a few years of working for low pay, he began to plan his next move. In 1865, the government announced that they were going to hold the first lottery in Jamaica. The funds raised would be used to build hospitals and schools across the island. Now, while this seems like a good cause, the reality was that the tickets were extremely expensive. For most people, the only way they could afford to buy a ticket was to team up with other people and pool their money together. Constantine knew that he didn't have enough money to win, but he had an idea. He went around the town and gathered all the people that he knew and convinced them to buy a ticket with him. Together, they had enough money to buy several tickets. But he needed someone to watch over the tickets to make sure that no one destroyed them. He gave them to his wife, Catherine, and told her to keep them safe until the day of the draw. That day finally arrived, and Catherine placed the tickets in a small box and took them with her to the courthouse. She handed them over to Constantine, who then left to go watch the draw. To everyone's surprise, one of their tickets ended up being the winning ticket. They had won the first ever lottery in Jamaica. Now, while they technically won it as a group, Constantine was the leader and the one that convinced everyone to participate. So he ended up taking the majority of the winnings. It was said that he won about £1,000, which at the time was the equivalent of about $1 million. Suddenly, he had a lot of money and was now considered one of the wealthiest men in Jamaica. He went back home and began to add on to his father's house, changing the name from Fairfield to Devon House. He added a third floor to the house and expanded the veranda that went around the entire bottom floor. Because of his wealth, he was also able to hire servants and live a life of luxury. He traveled back to England several times and brought back artifacts and artwork that he displayed in his house. He also donated some of his money to churches and schools, and even helped to establish the first hospital in Kingston. However, not everyone was happy for him. Many people saw him as a threat and accused him of using voodoo magic to win the lottery. Rumors began to spread that he had sacrificed his children to the devil in order to get the money. These rumors reached the governor, who then ordered that the house be searched. But they found nothing. Despite the accusations, people still refused to believe him. They claimed that he had hidden the evidence and demanded that he be put on trial for witchcraft. However, there was no evidence, and eventually, the charges were dropped. But this caused him to become very introverted, and he spent most of his days alone in his bedroom. Eventually, he became very ill and died. Before his death, though, he made arrangements for his estate to be sold to pay off his debts. The house was purchased by a wealthy businessman named John Book, who lived there for only a short time before he, too, passed away. The house was then purchased by the government and used as an office for the National Library. However, there was a problem. Over the years, the building had fallen into disrepair and was in desperate need of a renovation. They asked for proposals, and a local architect named Ernest A. Hill submitted the winning proposal. What was special about Ernest's proposal, though, was that he included plans to turn the top floor into apartments to rent out. This meant that the renovations would be paid for by the tenants, and so the government agreed. The renovation took 3 years to complete, and when they were done, the building looked nearly identical to how it looks today. However, during the renovations, they made a shocking discovery. While walking through the attic, Ernest noticed a small hole in the wall. When he looked through it, he saw an inscription that read 1881. He then realized that the entire third floor had been covered up during the renovations. When he reported his findings, a team of archaeologists were called in to investigate. They uncovered an entire floor of rooms that had been bricked up and hidden. When they removed the bricks, they found beautiful woodwork and high ceilings. It turned out that this entire floor had been added on by Constantine and then covered up when Devon House was renovated. So what happened to the money from the first lottery in Jamaica? Well, after all, the renovations were complete. The building was officially opened as Devon House Museum and is now open to the public. The grounds were also converted into a park and are free to explore. There is also a gift shop and a cafe, as well as several businesses that rent space in the building. So while the money from the lottery is UNT being used for hospitals and schools, like it was intended, it's still being used to benefit the people of Jamaica. So I hope you enjoyed learning about the history of the first man that made Devon House in Jamaica. If you want to learn more about Jamaican history, check out my interview with a historian right here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.